Yes, I was the one who gave my sister the keys to my dacha. What did you think? He said with that same careless smirk that always made my blood boil. I stood there, holding my phone, my hands trembling as I replayed the message from our neighbors. They said there was loud music all night coming from our dacha, laughter, shouting, someone even set off fireworks at 3 in the morning. At first, I didn't believe it. I thought it was some kind of mistake. But then, one of the neighbors sent me a video, and there she was, his sister, dancing by the pool in a bikini, holding a glass of champagne, with her friends cheering and splashing in the water. My heart sank. That was our place, the little world we built together. The house we painted ourselves one summer, where every tree, every flower, carried a memory. And now it was turned into a party zone. Are you out of your mind? I asked, my voice shaking. That's our home, not some playground for your sister and her friends. But he just shrugged, as if it was nothing. Oh, come on, don't overreact. She needed to unwind. It's been a tough time for her. I felt like I was talking to a wall. A tough time, I repeated. And what about me? You think it's easy for me? Working all day, running the house, taking care of everything, while you sit there pretending nothing's wrong. He rolled his eyes. You're exaggerating again. That's what he always said. Every time I tried to talk about something that mattered, it was always me who was overreacting. I swallowed the anger and walked away, but that night I couldn't sleep. The image of that video kept replaying in my mind. The music, the laughter, the way she danced like she owned the place. The next morning, I got into the car and drove out to the dacha. I told myself I just wanted to see for myself. But deep down, I knew, I was already preparing for a confrontation. The moment I turned onto our road, I noticed cigarette butts on the ground, tire marks in the grass, broken glass near the gate. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter. When I opened the gate, the sight hit me like a slap. Empty bottles scattered on the porch, confetti stuck to the bushes, a pair of heels left by the door. The pool was full of rose petals and plastic cups, and the air smelled like cheap perfume and smoke. I just stood there for a while, staring at the mess, unable to move. This wasn't my home anymore. It was like someone had erased every bit of warmth we had built and replaced it with noise, carelessness, and disrespect. I finally started cleaning, picking up the bottles one by one, trying to calm myself down. Then I heard voices, laughter, the sound of a door opening. And she walked out, his sister, in a silk robe, hair wet, a satisfied smile on her face. Oh, hi, she said casually, as if nothing had happened. Didn't know you were coming. We might have been a little loud yesterday. Sorry about that. She wasn't sorry at all. That smug tone, that dismissive look, it was too much. Get your things, I said quietly. You're leaving, now. She blinked, surprised. What, you're serious? Very, I said. This is not your house. You've crossed every line. She tried to argue, muttered something about how her brother said it was fine, but I didn't care. I stood there until she finally packed her things and drove off. The silence that followed was heavy but peaceful. I spent the next few hours cleaning the house, scrubbing the floor, throwing away everything that reminded me of her and her friends. By evening, I was exhausted, but I felt something else too, a strange clarity, as if I had finally done something right after years of silence. When he came home later that night, I thought maybe he'd understand. But instead, he walked in angry, slamming the door. What the hell did you do? He shouted. That's my sister, you had no right to kick her out. I looked at him, drained, empty, and said quietly, and what about me? Do I have any rights in this house at all? He didn't answer. Just turned away, muttering under his breath. That night, I realized something important. He didn't see me as a partner anymore. Just someone who kept things running while he did whatever he wanted. Someone convenient. And for the first time in years, I felt something stronger than hurt. I felt done. Truly done. The next morning, the silence between us was unbearable. He left early without saying a word, slamming the door behind him, while I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my cold coffee. I couldn't understand how we had reached this point. When did love turn into indifference? When did his family start meaning more to him than mine? For years, I had forgiven small things, his sarcastic remarks, his lack of attention, his way of always putting himself first. But this time, something had broken inside me. Around noon, his sister called. I saw her name on the screen and almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. You didn't have to overreact like that, she said immediately. It was just a party. He said I could stay there whenever I wanted. Her tone was smug, almost teasing. I took a deep breath and said quietly, "You may think you can do whatever you want, but that place isn't yours. And after what you did, you're not welcome there anymore." She laughed. "You really think you can decide that? It's his dacha, not yours. He told me himself his grandfather built it for him." That sentence hit me hard. His grandfather built it, not us, not me. For the first time, I realized how little I truly belonged to anything in his life. Everything was his car, his job, his family, his house, his decisions. And I was just there to keep it all together. When he came home that evening, I tried to talk. Calmly, rationally. I said, "We need to set boundaries. I don't want your sister or anyone else using our home without asking me." But he barely looked up from his phone. "You're making a big deal out of nothing," he said. "She's family. Stop being so dramatic." Dramatic. That word again. The one he always used to silence me. Something inside me snapped. "Do you even hear yourself?" I asked. "You gave away the keys to our house without asking me. You let her trash everything, and when I cleaned up the mess, you call me dramatic." He sighed, as if I were some annoying child. "You always find a reason to fight. Maybe if you weren't so uptight, people would like you more." I stared at him, stunned. That was the moment I knew we were done. There was no love left, no respect, not even kindness. Just a man who thought he could do whatever he wanted, and a woman who finally realized she didn't have to endure it anymore. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood up and said, "If you want to live your life like this, fine. But I won't be part of it." I walked into the bedroom, opened the wardrobe, and began packing a suitcase. He followed me, his tone suddenly changing. "Wait, you're not serious," he said, half laughing, half nervous. "You're just angry. You'll calm down." "No," I said, without looking at him. "I'm done calming down." I packed quietly, just the essentials, my clothes, some documents, my laptop. He watched me, stunned, maybe realizing for the first time that I wasn't bluffing. When I zipped the suitcase, he said bitterly, "You're walking away over a few broken bottles." "Over my sister." I turned to him and said softly, "No. I'm walking away because I've been invisible for too long." Then I left. The first few days were hard. I stayed with a friend in a small apartment on the edge of the city. I cried a lot, not because I missed him, but because I was grieving everything I had lost, the years, the patience, the love that had gone nowhere. He didn't call at first. I think he expected me to come crawling back. But I didn't. Instead, I found a new job, started rebuilding my life piece by piece. For the first time in years, I was free. Free from his control, his indifference, his family drama. And it felt strange, but good. About 3 weeks later, he finally called. His voice was calm, almost too calm. "We need to talk," he said. I agreed to meet him at a cafe. When I saw him, he looked different, tired, worn out, as if reality had finally caught up with him. "I've been thinking," he started. "Maybe I went too far. Maybe I should have listened to you." I stayed silent. "But you didn't have to leave," he added quickly, as if trying to fix the imbalance. "We could have worked it out." I looked at him and said, "You had years to work it out. You just didn't want to." He frowned, but didn't argue. Then he said quietly, "I'm sorry." Maybe he meant it. But it didn't matter anymore. I wasn't angry, I was done. Completely done. As I stood to leave, he called after me, "What happens now?" I turned back and said, "Now, you learn what it's like when silence isn't peace. It's loneliness." Then I walked away, and for the first time, I didn't look back. After that day at the cafe, something inside me finally settled. I didn't feel rage or sadness anymore, just quiet. The kind of quiet that comes when you stop expecting anything from someone. I moved into a small apartment downtown. It was nothing special, old furniture, squeaky floors, but it was mine. For the first time, I didn't have to explain myself to anyone. No one criticized the way I folded laundry, or the dinner I made, or how long I stayed at work. I could finally breathe. The first week was the hardest. I kept waking up at night expecting to hear his footsteps in the hallway or his phone ringing at midnight. But there was only silence. It felt both painful and healing. I started filling my days with little things, taking long walks, cooking meals just for myself, reading books I had never had time for. It was like learning to live again after years of emotional noise. Then one morning, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. It was him. You should come to the dacha, the text read. Something happened. My heart skipped a beat. I didn't want to care, but curiosity pulled me in. I drove out there, my hands gripping the steering wheel, unsure what to expect. When I arrived, I froze. The garden was overgrown, the paint peeling from the walls, the pool murky and green. It looked like it had aged 10 years in 1 month. He was standing on the porch, staring at the mess. The neighbors called the police again, he said quietly. Your sister? I asked. He nodded. She threw another party. I told her to stay away, but she didn't listen. They fined me, and he trailed off. His voice broke slightly, and I realized this was the first time I'd seen him look defeated. I guess you were right, he said softly. About everything. I wanted to feel vindicated, but instead, I felt tired. It's not about being right, I said. It's about respect. You never respected me, or what we built. He looked at me, guilt written all over his face. I thought I was helping. I thought giving her a place would make her happy. You gave her a place that wasn't yours to give, I said. You gave her what belonged to us. And in the process, you lost both. He nodded slowly. I lost you, he said quietly. That's what hurts the most. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. But then I remembered every time he'd called me dramatic, every time he'd made me feel small. I wasn't that woman anymore. I turned away, looking at the garden, the broken swing, the faded bench where we used to drink coffee on weekends. It all felt like another lifetime. You can fix the house, I said, but you can't fix what's gone between us. He didn't try to stop me when I walked back to the car. As I drove away, I saw him in the rearview mirror, standing there, small and lost. It should have made me feel powerful, but instead, I felt something deeper, a strange kind of release. That night, I sat by the window in my apartment, looking at the city lights. For years, I had been living for someone else, for his moods, his comfort, his approval. Now, for the first time, I was living for me. And even though I didn't have all the answers, I knew I would be fine. Weeks passed. I changed my number, started therapy, even joined a new company. The more distance I put between us, the clearer things became. He wasn't evil, just selfish. And I wasn't weak, just exhausted. One evening, while cleaning, I found an old photo of us at the dacha. We were smiling, covered in paint, holding brushes, so proud of what we built. I stared at it for a long time before tearing it in half. Not out of anger, but acceptance. Some chapters end not with fire, but with quiet understanding. Months later, I heard through mutual friends that he sold the dacha. He said it reminded him of too much. I wondered if he ever thought of me when he saw it for the last time. Maybe he did. Maybe not. But that didn't matter anymore. I had stopped needing his remorse to heal. Life began to fill with new colors, lighter ones. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since before we met. My first piece was a quiet landscape. A house surrounded by wildflowers, standing alone but beautiful. When I finished, I realized it wasn't about him at all. It was about me. The woman who finally chose peace over chaos, self-worth over approval. The woman who left the noise behind and found strength in her own silence. Months passed, and life slowly began to find its balance again. The pain of everything that had happened started to fade, replaced by a calm I had never known before. I no longer woke up with that weight in my chest, wondering what mood he'd be in or what argument might erupt. My mornings were mine again, quiet, simple, free. I found joy in the smallest things: a cup of coffee by the window, the sound of rain against the glass, the feeling of fresh air on my face when I walked to work. It was strange how peace could feel so foreign after years of tension. One evening, I received a message from one of our old neighbors near the dacha. Your husband doesn't live there anymore, it said. He sold it. For a long time, I stared at that message, unsure what I felt. That place had once been our dream, our project, our little world. But dreams can rot when the foundation cracks. The next weekend, I drove there one last time, just to see it. The new owners were already moving in, laughing, planting flowers, repainting the gate. The air felt lighter somehow. I didn't go in, I just stood by the road, watching them, smiling softly. It was no longer my home, and that was okay. I had let it go. As I drove back to the city, the sun was setting, and for the first time, I didn't think of what I had lost, I thought of what I had gained. Strength, self-respect, freedom. For years, I'd believed love meant patience, sacrifice, forgiveness at any cost. But now I knew love without respect is just endurance, and endurance isn't happiness. I had endured enough. Life, once again, began to surprise me. I met new people, not rushing into anything, just allowing things to flow naturally. One of them, a colleague from work, was gentle in ways I had forgotten existed. He listened, really listened, and never made me feel small for having feelings. He never called me dramatic, never brushed off my pain. With him, I didn't have to pretend. There were no promises, no illusions, just warmth and understanding. And that, I realized, was enough. One evening, we went for a walk near the river. The city lights reflected on the water, and I caught myself laughing, really laughing, for the first time in years. It wasn't the loud, forced laughter of trying to keep things together, it was genuine, light, alive. He looked at me and said, "You have a beautiful smile when you're not trying to hide it." I didn't know how to respond, so I just smiled again. Later that night, when I came home, I looked in the mirror and almost didn't recognize myself. There was no sadness in my eyes anymore, no bitterness. Just a woman who had survived something heavy and turned it into strength. Sometimes, late at night, my mind would wander back to him, to the man who once promised forever but couldn't even give respect. I didn't hate him anymore. Hate ties you to the past, and I was done living there. I simply wished him peace, wherever he was. Maybe he'd learned something too. Maybe he'd finally understood that people aren't possessions, that love is not measured by control but by care. Maybe not. It didn't matter. What mattered was that I had learned. I had learned to set boundaries, to say no without guilt, to stop apologizing for existing. I had learned that silence isn't emptiness, it's space for something new to grow. On the anniversary of the day I left him, I took a small trip alone to the seaside. Standing on the shore, I watched the waves crash against the rocks, each one pulling away only to return again. Life was like that, leaving, returning, changing. I took a deep breath and whispered into the wind, "Thank you for teaching me what I'll never accept again." And for the first time, those words didn't hurt. They healed. As the sky turned orange and pink, I realized something profound. The dacha, the arguments, the tears, the silence, all of it had been necessary. Without those storms, I would have never found myself. I wasn't the woman who begged for respect anymore. I was the woman who demanded it, quietly, confidently, without fear. And that was my real victory. When I returned home that night, I opened my journal and wrote one sentence. Asterisk. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to find yourself. Asterisk. Then I closed the book, turned off the lights, and let the peace of my own silence fill the room.